Hello all, and welcome to Texas, the series where I review and comment on each installment in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre saga. On tonight's episode, I'm taking on Butcher Boys. Yeah, Butcher Boys. Bet you never even heard of that movie. Bet you have no idea what it is. Bet you thought I was taking on the remake. You were wrong. 100% off. I'm taking on Butcher Boys. So, a bit of context. Butcher Boys was written by Kim Hinkle. I think I'm pronouncing that name properly. He also wrote a good chunk of the script for the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he also did writing for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 4. He also directed that film. The script for Butcher Boys was originally supposed to be the script for Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 5. But because of Hollywood copyright reasons and all that snafu, they had to change the title so they wouldn't get sued. So they changed the script a little bit, the bare minimum, so they wouldn't get sued, and made Butcher Boys. And when I say the bare minimum, I mean they literally did just change the title from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 5 to Butcher Boys. This has every single element from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, and if it wasn't for the title, it would be Part 5. Honest to goodness, I am not making any of this up. It has the cannibals in it, it takes place in Texas, it has chainsaws, has the main character grabbed by the cannibals and forced to have a meal with them, Leatherface is in it for a good chunk of it. It has a lot of the returning cast members from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, they pop up in small cameos. It goes all out of its way to be a sequel to the franchise. And not only that, it builds on and expands on the concepts from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4. This builds and expands on the whole idea of the shady, evil government organization being behind everything. And not only that, not only does it build on the ideas from Part 4 with the government being behind everything, it assumes you've seen Part 4, and thus it doesn't really explain it that well, if at all. To the point where if you haven't seen Part 4, if you don't know about the government being behind everything, this movie's darn hard to follow. It has an IMDb rating of 3.5, and that's extremely understandable because most people don't know this is supposed to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 5. And if you go in blind not knowing that, the plot is literally impossible to follow. It assumes you know it's Part 5 and assumes you've seen the prior installments, and it does not take it easy on you. So yeah, this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 5. And yeah, because the plot assumes you've seen the prior films, it's only enjoyable if you see in that context. Messed up, isn't it? But of course, the question here is the same question as always. Is it good? While this movie goes out of its way to try and replicate the rough, harsh filming style of the original, it's once again almost like a found footage film like the original was. So that's very refreshing. I really like the filming style of this movie. Also, there's a lot of payoffs in this movie. There's a lot of things that have been hinted at throughout the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series that we finally get to see play out in this movie. We finally actually see the cannibals eat people. I know that sounds weird, but in each movie it's been hinted at, it's been talked about, it's been suggested, but we've never actually seen the cannibals actually eat anyone. It's kind of weird. We finally see them do it. They eat people in this. Took long enough. We also finally see the cannibals exposed in public and respond to police officers, which is kind of cool. We finally see the police bump into these guys and try to arrest them and what transpires as a result. That's really cool. So there's these payoffs for these things that as fans we've been waiting for a long time. So I really like those elements. I really like the filming style. I really like all that behind it. The cannibals in this have now a gang element instead of a family element. They work more like a gang instead of a family, which is an interesting new dynamic. So it has that as well. So it treats the cannibals in a more different and fresh way, but it's still the same old cannibals. But of course, no movie's perfect, and what are the cons? It's really hard to describe this, but this movie just seems to hate women. No, I'm not making stuff up. All the women characters in this film are given horrible dialogue, and they're all made to sound like stereotypical airheads. All of them. It goes out of its way to make the women characters seem completely idiotic and juvenile. Like, all of them are given horrible dialogue. Not only that, the cannibals seem to only eat women now. I don't know why women flesh is apparently better than dude flesh. Seems kind of random, but whatever. And there's this whole subplot with the main character that I'm not even going to go into, but it really feels like they just put that in there to mess around with the main character some more and do some really twisted things to her for no apparent reason, and it adds nothing to the movie. I'm just going to say the pregnancy plot line, so if you saw the movie you know what I'm talking about, but it adds nothing to the movie. It's just there to mess around with the lead some more, and just there because it feels like the director likes picking on the lead. It's really weird. The movie just seems to really hate women in the dialogue it gives them, and the fact that the cannibals seem to only target women, and in how it treats the main character. It just seems to hate them. It gets to the point where it's a little uncomfortable. Just a little bit. And to add to that uncomfortableness, this movie randomly and sporadically throws in an evil crossdresser. And unlike with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, where I could go with this whole spiel about that's just the way you do Leatherface, this is some random other character that has nothing to do with anything, and he's just there to be an evil crossdresser. Because apparently this movie hates crossdressers too. So yeah, it's not very common. I know it sounds odd, but it's not very common that I bump into horror movies that just feel mean. And that's what this feels like. It just feels pointlessly mean and kind of crude and really weird. It kind of feels like my Uncle Lance, and nobody likes that guy. Nobody. So yeah, there's a lot of pros, but there's also a lot of cons. I gotta say, because it dislikes the women characters, this movie has the worst heroes there are, so that's a big fault of the film. But the new dynamic for the cannibals is pretty interesting. So, I don't know, I guess I would give this a 6 out of 10. You can watch it if you want, you can skip it if you want. It wasn't even, it's Butcher Boys. It's not even technically Texas Chainsaw Massacre 5. But I'm doing this review because I know some fans will appreciate the aspect of finding a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre installment without even knowing it, stumbling upon this and witnessing a new installment. So, if you get a kick out of that, I'm glad for you. I give this a 6 out of 10 and say that it has its moments, but also has its downfalls. Will I find the next one a bit better than this? I hope so. We're taking on the remake next time, for reals this time. Awesome! Join me next time, where we continue our voyage through Texas.